You missed it a bit, but I spoke about housing. I spoke about work with the organization and make sure that we have a First Nation Indian reflex, work with the communities. I spoke already with Saint Picard. I had the privilege to be an old friend with Fontaine too, because as you know, the former minister was in charge of the outside the reserve and the Métis, and been working with the issue of the residential school. So I'm very sensitive about the issue, and some of them live that tragedy. So I understand their needs. I know that we need to do a lot with them, and concretely, of course, everything regarding housing. When we spoke about the injection of the supervised site, that's also an issue. Everything regarding addiction, can look through it, and I believe in pilot projects. So we will be able to work with some of the organization and provide some pilot projects specifically for that project. Hello.
Okay,
Kevin Gallagher, CTV News. Close. Mr. Mayor, obviously you're talking about some new roles for the Montreal police within this plan. You're saying that about 40 times a day police officers deal with some issue that deals with the homeless, but also there have been some very high profile tragic events that have happened with conflicts between police and homeless people. What new measures will make a difference to avoid tragedies like what happened with Alain Dubois within your plan?
Well, I don't think we should mix cases, because you saw what was the result of that inquiry. But clearly, I think that if we need more training, some people already said that we need more specific trainings for the police force. At the same time, we need to put more resource to the actual squadron that exists with the social resources. So I think we need to do more on that level. When you have 3 or 4 teams, that's one thing, but we need more. So we have to be able to adapt yourself to the reality of where you are. So we will take a look very closely at that, and I'm ready to invest in that essence. Everything regarding culture, to how to live together, put some measure with like the Société de Développement Ville, make sure that we have a clear strategy for the entrepreneurship. Because there's an issue there that we have to take a look at. We don't want to wear our head in the sand. We have to take a look at the homeless people, but at the same time, the business community needs also some answers. So we need to work and put the resource together to make sure that they can have what it takes. They have their own business to take care at the same time. So all that, I think, it's not just a matter of the police force itself, but training, more resources. I spoke already with the president of Citoyens Jeunesse, and we have some good strategy together. There's already some, and I'm waiting also with the plan of Madame Charlevoix. So you will have some other resource there. But what I'm saying is, listen, we will take our leadership role. We are ready to do what we have to do on the territory. So by already put up the plates, I think it's good politics and good policy for the sake of the
Budget-wise, what's the city's commitment from now until 2017?
Right now it's 2.5 million a year for the homeless, plus the program for the housing.
And Mr. Coderre, just to follow up on that, do you think the $2.5 million a year is going to be enough
It's
to solve
never
the
enough.
problem?
It's never enough. Of course it's not enough. But sometimes resource doesn't mean a matter of money. It's a matter of awareness. It's a matter of political will. We never spoke that much publicly, and thanks to you, since we put that up front. And awareness is a way also to change the culture. When was the last time you asked a homeless person what was his name? That's my point.
I want to ask you a question on another topic, Mr. Coderre, and that is something that's in the news about Cavendish Boulevard extension.
We'll finish homeless, and then I can go on with you. Suburban.
It's open.
It's open.
Yep.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you've got warm and cordial relations with Westmount Mayor Peter Trent. Alas, there's a growing problem in South and Westmount with the spillover from the what used to be the Reading Memorial. needless to say, Amerindian and Inuit population in the parks. Citizens are screaming, public security being called on a daily basis. It's an issue, and I quite admire what you said about it's a measure of our own humanity, but it's also a civic measure, and the parks belong. Westmount residents have rights too.
I'm going to speak. No, it's a matter of rights. It's a matter of how to live together. But it's a matter that when there's some issues, we have to deal with it. So clearly, I'm going to speak with Peter. You know, the reason why I want to take leadership as mayor of Montreal, but also as president of the Greater Montreal area, is to make sure that the others will follow too. We already have some housing measures. We already have some policy that attach with. But there are some of them who are, and I'm not saying that about Peter, but there are some people who knows a lot from other municipalities, the bus lane, and pay them a trip to go home. So I already spoke to my fellow colleagues at the New Municipalité du Québec. I spoke at the same time also to the people from the Greater Montreal area. And clearly now we will have, and we are already working on it, to have a special committee vis-a-vis the homeless issues. Now, for the civic issue, for some specific, I think that we will talk with Peter and see how we can manage together. But I think that plan is a good start to find a way to help them, but you know, enhance the quality of life for everyone.
Hi there, Mr. Coderre. It's Ainsley McClellan from CPC. I just wanted to ask you, you touched on it a little bit before about the federal government and their role in social housing. What exactly what is your criticism of them, and how might this change if you were able to repatriate some of those powers?
Well, the issue is that we will lose an envelope of $550 million for social housing. And it's not a matter of Montreal, it's a Canadian matter. And everybody, all my colleagues from Calgary, Ottawa, Vancouver, Gregor spoke about it too. We had a meeting on that, Mike Savage from Halifax. It is a national issue. As a matter of fact, it's a national tragedy. So we need to make sure, that's a soundbite. We need to make sure that people open their heart. It's not an expense. It's an investment on dignity. And this is key. And social housing is not just for the homeless people. It's to make sure to help them not to become one. So you have affordable housing, you have social housing, you have student housing. You have to make sure that you put up together that kind of strategy. But at the end of the day, we have a government who's announcing from New York that there's a big surplus that's coming. So if there's a surplus, call me, I'll tell you where to invest. And one of them is social housing. So we have a duty to make sure that we help the people who are most in need. But that kind of investment is the true measure on wealth. If we want to invest and make sure that the city, you know, shine, well, we have to take care of those issues too. And I think that if specifically you want a role for the federal government, this is it. And you have SPLE, of course, that's the other one. And I know it's working, and we're saving lives. And if we're not there, we cannot bury our head in the sand. There is inequity that exists in the world. And one of them, well, the governments have to invest in their citizens. Merci.
Hi, Denis. Robin Edgar from 99% Media and also CUTV, Concordia University Television. You've spoken a lot about social housing and more social housing, which is a great thing, and buying rooming houses and converting them into social housing and so on. You've also spoken about the désinstitutionnalisation. That is the certain percentage of homeless people who are suffering from quite serious mental illnesses. And I was wondering, do you have specifically planned already buying, for instance, a rooming house and dedicating it 100% to people who suffer from mental illnesses as a kind of halfway house, and maybe even doing the same kind of thing for people who are addicted to drugs, so that the the social housing that they are in it's supervised in such a way that it helps them with their drug addiction. I was wondering if that's already in the works, and if not.
Well, this is in the work, but at the same time, you see, by putting out the table as a start, what I'm saying today is that the other part and the other colleagues from other governments will do their share. We're already talking to each other, and I sent to the government of Quebec, this is what we will do, and we will be able to, work closely together afterwards. And we're already there. Secondly, the fact we have right now a plan d'aménagement. We're talking about plan d'aménagement. And one of them is, of course, to make sure that we have some housing process and some housing strategy. But there's already an APSIM and all the others that exist. I mean, I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm here to sit with everybody and say, okay, if we put up the resource, if we want to make sure that it's happening, it's not just a Coderre thing or a Montreal thing. It's everybody's business. So we will all work together. They made all their studies already. We know where we should invest, and the problems most of the time is a matter of resource. So the next step is we're all sitting together, make sure that the plan will work, and then wait for the others. But I'm not here to wait for anybody. I'm ready to work right now.
Okay, but just following up on that, from my point of view, from what I've seen of the homeless situation, I've seen it up pretty close, that the most vulnerable are the ones that suffer from serious mental illnesses. They should not be in homeless shelters at all, as far as I'm concerned. They should have a stable place to live, and they should be supervised at minimum. A few should perhaps even be hospitalized. I don't like to.
That's not a question, that's a comment, and I think that nobody will be against that, but we need to make sure that all the people work together and make this happen.
I was getting to my question, which was, what level of priority do you give to the mentally ill homeless people? That's my question.
Well, my priority is homeless people, period. I'm not trying to define anybody. I'm saying that this is the reality and we have to take care of it. That's it. Bon, dernière question.
Oui.
CJD.
I just want a timeline on the homelessness advocate and on the social housing. When would they be in place? When would the housing be available? And when would the advocate be in place?
Also, Roman and myself are talking about that, so we're talking about starting next year. We already have a plan because there's already some numbers for social housing that we will look for the future, near future. And for the protector, I gotta talk back to some of the people, but within the next 2 years, I think it's even less than that. OK, ça va? Bon, questions diverses, rapidement. Monsieur Poirier, qui est patient.
Bonjour, M. Coderre.
Donc, c'est ma deuxième conférence de presse.
M. Coderre, je vais vous parler de relations de travail.
Oui.
Alors, on a reçu à TVA un